Hello guys. It's me, Arshi, and Dibbo is here with me. So, we are on our fifth episode of BOITHOK podcast. It's a bit surprising for you guys, probably, because we are actually mm, recording this podcast in person, and obviously, thanks and gratitude to our honorable guest. So, Akash is here with us. Hello, Akash.
Hi. Thanks for
Hi.
having me over, guys.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
thanks for welcoming me to Dhaka.
It's been like a really long time that you have been with again as SASFL, I guess, right?
Yes, it's
If I'm not
definitely
wrong.
been a long time. Yeah.
So everyone, Akash was with us till a long time. Like when we joined SFL, he was the like almost alumni of the SFL. And would you like to like reminisce some of the time that you had with SFL? Like how was your time?
Yeah. So just very briefly touching upon before we get to the subject matter of this podcast. My SFL journey started in 2018 when I joined as a local coordinator, and post that I was academic programs coordinator for 2 years, and started the Fellowship of Freedom in India, which ran for 2 years, where we had 24 amazing fellows, few of them from Bangladesh as well, uh, and uh, and basically, yeah, that's I've been a Prometheus fellow lately. That has been my last engagement with SFL, but it's I love to like give back in any form, and just looking at how uh, coordinators at SFL are doing new things like this podcast that you guys started. It fills me with a lot of hope.
Thank you. Every time someone comes to the podcast, we ask them a simple thing. As you are also an SFLer or as an SFLer, what made you join SFL? Like, what made you interested in SFL? What thought or inspired you?
Sure. So for me, I think it was actually simple. I was already a libertarian, so I did not need convincing, so to speak. I when I came across SFL and I was like, okay, there definitely, this seems like if there is anybody, I don't know who else is a libertarian on campus, but I really definitely wanted to speak to a lot of libertarians on campus. So I think the applications were not open at the time, so I bookmarked it, and I kept tracking it. When it basically opened, I applied. Sogandhi, who I later ran Freedom Fellowship with, she interviewed me, and thankfully enough, she thought I should join. So yeah, that's how it started. I was already a libertarian. Then I started perhaps one of the first college clubs. SFL existed, but one of the first college clubs on campuses at IIT Madras, and we had a lot of engagement within the IIT Madras community who come to events and people participated. That was a fantastic time.
Yeah.
So, we have seen that Akash, you have started a company of yours, a startup, Raaz, and you're the CEO and founder of this company. So, how did you come up with this idea?
Sure, I mean, as a libertarian, right? When you believe in the power of free enterprise and the power of companies to do good, part of me was always wanted to start a company, right? And before this, when I graduated, I was chief of staff at a SaaS startup based out of Bangalore, and as chief of staff, I shadowed the founders, grew the company from when I had joined 7 people to 30 people. Um, so part of me always wanted to start a company. This idea came in a very spontaneous way. Maybe that's a story for a later time. And I've spoken about it in multiple interviews. So that is there actually on the internet as well. Um, and when it came, yeah, we basically started. Raaz is a mobile first reproductive health solution for men in India, and we just raised few months ago, 8 months ago, 8 9 months ago, we raised $1 million round, and are now basically live with over 10,000 users.
That's
Wow,
huge.
that's really awesome.
That's huge.
As an entrepreneur, what kind of challenges do you think you have faced most while running this entrepreneurship?
So with Raaz, the biggest challenge that we faced, right, because it's what we are helping solve is a taboo. Men don't wanna talk about their problems to people they know, to even doctors in their vicinity, because there's a taboo that it would spread, people would talk about it and all of that. And it's very for a lot of people, it's very linked to their sense of masculinity, right? So then discrete consultations and remote consultations over phone with very qualified doctors from who are not from your town, right? And that's how you keep it also very discreet. That becomes key, that becomes very important. But at the same time, since it was a taboo, these people are being cheated multiple times. They're being cheated by quacks, by people who sell fake medication, charge a lot but really don't deliver any value, right? So anybody who has been cheated multiple times, the threshold for trust just basically rises every single time you get cheated, right? You are not willing to trust the next time. So building trust has been the biggest single most important challenge that we as a company face. Let's zoom out a little bit. And as I had mentioned that I've co-authored a book with Kumar Anand of Center for Civil Society. It's coming out next year from Hatching India, and it's an economics primer. So just wanted perhaps to touch upon one of the chapters, which is titled Innovation, Inequality and Entrepreneurship.
So from a libertarian point of view, do you think innovation is like hard, or like innovation is something that people can easily do, or like they don't want to, or there is some barriers to it? In your opinion, what's your thought on this?
That's a great question. So in common perception, there's a fallacy about innovation. People think that flying cars are innovation. People think that SpaceX is innovation, and it is. It's fantastic technological breakthrough, which is innovation. But innovation is not necessarily something new technologically. Some new tech is not just the only innovation. Innovation is figuring out how to do more from the same amount of resources, right? Now, a lot of people do that in your day-to-day life. For example, I mean, if I have to give an example of Bangladesh, Pathao is a great company, right? That figured out that you could do bike taxi services and food delivery, and Bangladesh was a market for it, and they're continually innovating. So now they are basically giving basically advance. You can basically do a pay later sort of thing. So all of that is innovation as well, and that's a startup. If you think about many other sort of things, there would be people in their daily lives that are innovating, making their jobs easier. Everybody is innovating in their daily lives, right? So innovation as a term is very misconstrued. People don't understand what it really means, but everybody is innovating actually. I think that innovation has a low barrier, but when it comes to enterprise, you have to look at innovation in a way where you find a new way to do something. Can you scale that up now? And if you scale that up, that innovation, and it can be business innovation in many ways, right? It might be something which has nothing to do with no tech involved, and it's still a business innovation, right? So innovation is everywhere. It's all around us. We just refuse to see it.
I think basically the initiative is the main thing, I guess.
Absolutely, initiative and out of the box thinking sometimes.
Like in libertarian perspective,
by the way, this is completely this is also the normal perspective. Like this is what innovation entails. If you look up actually the definition of innovation, even taught at MBA schools, like taught at Harvard Business School. This is
Mhm.
actually the definition of innovation even there.
No, I was saying like from libertarian perspective, we were thought that like spontaneous order for free market to have spontaneous order is must, and for spontaneous order to arise like entrepreneurship and that kind of thing, like the market will create its own.
Absolutely.
So I think innovation is kind of related to that also, like for free
100%.
market to have.
100%. So if you have spontaneous order, that's the only then can innovations really come up very freely, right? If basically if the government is doing something, right, in a government setup, it's very difficult to innovate because there is no incentive to innovate. You know, a government servant will only make that much salary even after innovation, right? And if it goes wrong, then they would perhaps lose their job. They would be punished for it, right? But in a private enterprise, you might have an outsized opportunity that if you are able to crack something new, and you might fail, and you have to face consequences if you fail, right? uh, you might lose your business, you know, people might not give you money the second time. Okay, n number of things that can happen. But if you succeed, there is an outsized outsized value that you would unlock, not just for yourself but for others who are using it as well. That's why spontaneous order is really key in unlocking innovation.
There are also many legal bindings and registration process that kind of hinders hinders behind the process of um, establishing innovation or establishing entrepreneurship in our society. So, how do you see this picture? What do you think about it?
Yes, so that's where ease of doing business becomes very, very important, and ease of doing business for all stratas of society, right? So for registering a business, if it's difficult to register a business, it takes, you know, if it takes like 8 months to register a business, if it takes this much money, then what you have done is that you have created a entry barrier. Now, basically, the number of people who would be able to start companies has reduced. So the chances of competition, the chances of innovation, that has reduced, right? Similarly, there is basically ease of doing business is really bad maybe at for people at the lowest rate of society, right? If you for example, the Center for Civil Society in India did great work looking at ease of doing business for hawkers, street hawkers, right? If you are basically getting harassed by the police every single day, and it's seizing your vehicle, seizing, you know, whatever money you made that day, then it becomes very difficult, and you don't want to expand your business because, you know, it all might just get seized. So there is definitely, it's really ease of doing business is really important, and cutting down regulations, cutting down onerous regulations that make it difficult to start businesses, to make it that make it difficult to sustain businesses, that make it difficult to raise money, that make it difficult to take debt, right, against a collateral. So, for example, land. If you don't have clear land titles, right, and I think that problem is still also there in Bangladesh and in India as well. That people have been living on that land for a long while, but they don't have the titles to that land. That land on paper does not belong to them, right? Now, when it does not belong to them, they can't show it as collateral and take debt to do business, right? So that again becomes a barrier to entrepreneurship, barrier to innovation, barrier to entry for any of this.
Like this barrier topic, like recently I saw a post about North America also, like they also have, like, if someone wants to open a hospital in any state, they will have to have a con law, like there is a con law, so they need to have that certificate to open a hospital, and that's why it's stated that that's why the hospital bill or the medical bill is higher
very
in
high.
US.
Yeah.
So
Administrative expenses in terms of regulatory expenses are much higher in the US. So sometimes basically what is happening is that in healthcare expenses, a lot of this expense is just going to administrators, healthcare administrators, who it's arguable whether they're adding value, right? And in complying with regulations rather than on actual healthcare. So that is basically driving up the medical bills in America. That's one of the reasons. Obviously, it's a complex issue.
Many things
Yes,
kind of do.
but this is definitely one of
I
them.
brought up this like topic because like many of the South Asian peoples actually, I would say mainly, let's say India, Bangladesh, or our neighboring countries, people think that socialism is the like goal to have, or base that way they will have the best life, because some people, the lower income people, are getting free medicals, like free things, or but the thing is, the outcome they are not saying, and the like repercussions, like the whenever someone is giving them free, the government is giving them something free, that always have a backfire to it, and the mismatch and everything. Did you face anything or something like? Do you have anything to comment on that?
Yeah, so there are two things here, right? So in terms of socialism, which is full-blown socialism, right? Both India and Bangladesh have experienced socialism. We have tried; it has failed. That is the reason that we are here. Countries that basically started out at the same time, at the same income level, perhaps poorer, are much richer now, right? So South Korea started at the same time; it was very poor. Now it's an advanced economy. Now it's counted among rich economies. And so do like many other Southeast Asian countries. Singapore, Malaysia is still a middle income economy. It has its problems of its own, but Singapore and Malaysia. So yeah, if you just even look at Singapore and Malaysia is not as poor, but still, Malaysia did not want Singapore to be a part of Malaysia because it was actually a very poor place. It was really, one of the most backward places on earth. And then Singapore achieved independence, and it was a choice that they made. It was the policies that they picked that took them where they are, and that took them to the levels of prosperity that they have today. And this goes without saying that as a libertarian, you definitely look at it and you think that the authoritarianism there is in Singapore that really led to all of this. Maybe the authoritarian part you don't condone, but at the same time, it's undeniable that they were able to bring in rule of law and were able to thus achieve immense prosperity.
A few days back also we are doing another podcast, and we are discussing what are there are many principles of classical liberalism. So among all of them, if you had to choose one, what would you choose? I chose free market because I am interested in that Austrian economics and all that. But Arshi chose, and others also chose about rules of law.
Spontaneous order,
And
rules of law.
the thing is, like, we think people, at least the local coordinators that are coming to SFL, or the past ones who are still connected to SFL, at least knowing their principles, or at least thinking about this, and if at least having a discussion on this, I think it's really much important for this to at least have a much clearer picture on everything, I guess.
Sure.
Either it can be on business, either it can be on life, either it can be on policy, everything, I guess.
So I think free markets are obviously downstream of rule of law. So you can only have a free market if you have rule of law, right? And I'll basically try to illustrate, and maybe this will resonate with the local coordinators. If you think deep enough, it should resonate that why rule of law is very important and why we don't have support for rule of law in the subcontinent, right? If you start thinking about any policy, any action that the government has taken from the prism of whom you support, if you support a specific party, a specific politician, and they have done something, and you think that since they have done it, this must be good, right? And then you're supporting it just because of that, which happens with a vast majority of our people, that they support policy positions not based on what they believe. They've not really deeply reasoned out the policy, but they are thinking about the party or the politician that they like. Now, just know that if today somebody is jailed and you think that they are really like a bad person, you don't agree with their opinions at all, but they've been jailed for opinions, not for murdering somebody, or not for a crime that is real, but about for expressing an opinion, or for
They were
for
jailed.
disagreeing. Yeah.
For disagreeing something.
Yeah,
opposing
then
something.
and then you support it today, it might be tomorrow it might be you, right? Because political establishments change, and that's what the history of the subcontinent also teaches you, that and specifically in Bangladesh, where I mean the power transition has been very bloody, like deeply bloody across times, right? But it once you kill people after you grab power from the other side, be sure that when they grab power, they will also kill you, right? So it's basically it's a never-ending cycle. So that's why rule of law is the most important principle here. For sure.
About the freedom of expression, one of my favorite stand-up comedian is like Kunal Kamra and like Abhishek Upmanyu, both are from India. So I recently, like not recently, I think 3 or 4 months ago, he did a stand-up, and like he got in a controversy because of that. Like whenever I had to give a expression or example of like freedom of expression and how it's being abused, I give that example.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think that's something something shouldn't have been done. Like,
absolutely, 100%.
Like even now, whatever we are seeing here and whatever the things like
but again, so for example, just coming back to this, right? Just doubling down on this. That's why freedom of speech is so important. That even somebody like Kunal Kamra, who basically, when it happened with him, and they broke the studio, he basically was obviously, he went to another state and he's safe, thankfully. If you ask him whether hounding up other people that he disagrees with is fine, I think somebody did that. I think he appeared in an interview with I'm forgetting Akash Singh, who is an American stand-up comedian, and he showed no remorse about other people that he disagrees with being subjected to similar outcomes. So basically, that shows you that how deep the disrespect for rule of law spreads. That even people who have been subjected to who have been on the other side, where they have been abused for just expressing their freedom of speech, even they don't support freedom of speech at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
the
makes you
interesting
think.
point. That's the interesting point to see.
Freedom of speech is most of the time malpracticed. In the name of freedom of speech, you can see so many bad things are happening from time to time.
Like,
I will be giving some examples from the recent situation we have gone through Bangladesh. Even to this time, we are more vocal to claim our rights to share our opinions in every field, in every social media platform. So the thing about freedom of speech is now like this. A separate group of people, they think that um, um, things have been so wrong for the past few years, for the past a long time. So now I have the right to claim for what I think is right. And you may have different opinions, you may have different lifestyle or different idea or philosophy, but I will be establishing my ideology over yours. So it kind of clashes. I think the idea of freedom of speech should be understood more than being practiced, which lacks in almost every sectors in every society of South Asia. I think so.
Yeah, for sure. So your freedom of speech extends only to your ability to express that opinion. But if that opinion is that that this person should not exist, right, and this person should be discriminated against or something, you try to put that into practice. That's when the freedom of speech stops, right? Because that's not technically freedom of speech. That's
one question I wanted to ask is, let's say someone said something against the, I would say a specific group of people. Let's say an indigenous group of people. Let's say someone, and there in that specific society, there is like freedom of speech is like well established. So the government won't take any action for him against him actually. So is it okay for other people to avoid him and
yes, absolutely. So I have my freedom of speech, and I can say things that freedom of speech just means that the government should not take an action, but it does not mean that other people are still bound to associate with me. If you don't like my opinions, I think you are free to disassociate with me and to even boycott me or something of that sort. I think that is part and parcel of freedom of speech.
And I don't think many of the South Asians actually believe that. They
Yes.
believe government also should take action, and they also will have to vent their anger on that.
Yes.
And that's the main problem that we are seeing every time.
And it's okay if they are venting their anger against somebody in a non-violent way.
The
But
problem
obviously-
is there is violence.
Yes.
One thing that most of the time our coordinators or even any of my friends, they have this conception that innovation and equality cannot go simultaneously at the same time.
So innovation and innovation
And equality
means inequality. That's what is the conception.
they think that
Yeah.
they think that it will be too much competition and
Yes, they're right, and that's a good thing. So inequality is not bad. That's why you need to first people need to understand that inequality in itself is not bad always, right? And inequality is natural. It's there in society. So innovation does lead to inequality. That's true, and definitely in the shorter run, it definitely does lead to some inequality, because let's say that there's a new technology or there is something new breakthrough that has happened. The people that it reaches first would definitely get disproportionate amount of value from it. Right, so it will create some fundamental inequality in the short run, but in the longer run, the technology, the innovation, it diffuses to the whole society, and then everybody is better off. Right, now the other thing that innovation does is that it reduces the real inequality that really matters, that is not measurable inequality. Okay, so yeah, I'll take some time to explain that. People talk a lot about income inequality, wealth inequality, even consumption inequality. Right? Consumption inequality is basically, for one, there are two things, right? Consumption inequality is the most important inequality, right? Because how does it matter how much money somebody has, how much they are earning? What really does matter is that are people able to what is the spending power, what are people spending, how much are they consuming? That is basically fundamentally what you should be measuring. And so that's why when you think about it, when you look at any indicator of inequality, Bangladesh and US, let's just take that example. India is actually slightly less unequal. So India is Bangladesh and America are at the similar level of inequality in both the societies. India is even less unequal than any of these two countries. India has slightly more equality, right? Now, when you go on the street and you try to see that, you would say that your experience doesn't corroborate the fact or the data. If I know experience, it seems like there is more inequality, right? But no. What's happening is that the consumption inequality is much higher. In the US, inequality is higher because there are a lot of very rich people. There are not a lot of very poor people, right? And if you take a median person and the richest person in the world, they're likely using the same phone. Like, beyond a point, what can you really spend your money on, right? You can either spend your money on brands, or you can spend money on, experiences that are not really that vital. So, if the median person is getting lifted up, right, and even if you take an example of, like, when you talk about technology, let's say that you take an example of a phone, 10,000 rupee worth phone. That's the example that we've used in the book. Samsung Galaxy something, right? And an iPhone, the latest iPhone 17. Most of the function, all of that, it's very similar. There isn't really something. It's not a 100x phone, or it's not even 20x better phone. Nobody would say that iPhone is 17 Pro is 20 times better. It has 20 times more features than Samsung Galaxy. No, right? But and if you think about that, if you extend the same logic across time horizons, then let's do a thought experiment, right? Are you richer than Akbar? Akbar was the
obviously not.
Akbar was the emperor of Hindustan, right? Akbar was the Mughal king. Was Akbar richer than you?
I think so.
Of course.
Yes, if you think about it in those terms, yes. But no, not in terms of experience, right? Because think about it this way. Did Akbar have a mobile phone? Was he able to talk to Birbal when Birbal went to Calcutta?
Also,
No, he had to wait. He had to wait for
had
like all
such
3.
challenges, such struggles like us. So yeah.
Well, Akbar's struggles were bigger, right? If you think about it, if he basically, for example, if he had a tooth extraction, right? You have a tooth extraction, you get a painkiller, and you're fine in 2 hours. If Akbar had a tooth extraction, they would bring pliers and they would just put and they would take it out, right? And he's crying for like 3 days, right? So who is richer now, right? I mean, what would you do with all that gold, right? So in terms of consumption, any generation before you was certainly poorer, right? And they were certainly poorer than the median person, than the poorer person also today.
That was
right?
such a beautiful example.
Yeah. So if you start thinking about experiences, if you start thinking about really because that's what matters. How does it matter how much gold you have?
True.
If you are not able to really, make your
Utilize it.
spend it, right? What Akbar, for example, did not even have tomatoes. You have tomatoes, right? Tomatoes, I think, were brought by the Portuguese much later. So even the variety of dishes that you think that, oh my God, there's very few. Like, you have access to a lot more variety of dishes. And if you live in a city like Dhaka, you can go have Italian cuisine. Akbar could never have thought of Italian cuisine. Had no access to TV, right? Or Spotify, or I don't know, a number of things. Never flew a plane, for sure.
He had his personal Spotify in his own home.
He did not. That's actually a great example. So if you think about it, he had some court musicians. They are playing Hindustani music. Now he wants to listen to Carnatic music from the south, right? He has to basically write a letter, send it across. They will come in 3 months. Here you can just change the playlist on Spotify. Basically from Arijit Singh, you can go to Justin Bieber in 2 minutes. So
on that concept, don't you think it brings the value of those things down? We are getting this much easier than him. So let's say he's waiting for 3 days to hear at least one medium or Carnatic music.
Correct.
And that will be
So are people valuing it as much is the question. No, that's precisely the point. Now, that's not a question that can be easily answered. Maybe people don't value it as much, but who decides, right? Like, it's such a subjective question that it's very difficult to. Yes, obviously people value it lesser because nobody is paying as much as even a proportion of what Akbar paid to bring those musicians. You're changing your Spotify. You're not even sometimes ready to pay for the Spotify premium, right? You are on the free plan and changing it, right? So you're happy to hear the ads. So for sure that people value it, maybe not as much, and that's okay.
Being materialistic is okay
Um,
to a certain
yes,
point.
I mean that's just that's very subjective, right? It depends.
Maybe
economics as a discipline has no answer to this. People like being materialist, well and good, and some people don't. They're happy with what with less stuff. That's also fine.
Austrian econs actually.
But even if you think about it, even less materialism, you still have a phone, right? That itself makes you richer. If you fall sick, even if you're not a materialist, how does that matter? You're still gonna. The doctor prescribes you antibiotics, you will take it, right? So that makes you and your experience much better and richer than Akbar's.
Deep conversation from entrepreneurship to consumership. So, what was your the chapter's main context about?
So the context was basically linking innovation and entrepreneurship to inequality, to figure out that yes, it might lead to some rise in inequality, but in the longer run, it makes everybody's experience very similar. And when it makes everybody's experience very similar, the person who is the richest person in the world and the person who is basically a median person, if their life experience is same, how does it matter that there is inequality on charts, right? The other thing that becomes really, really important is that that what is the source of that inequality? Is the source of that inequality innovation? Not always, right? Specifically in, say, South Asia, sometimes it's government favor, sometimes it's corruption, right? That is causing a part of that inequality, let's say. That's not okay, right? Because then the real point for South Asia is that are your politicians trying to bring down poverty levels, or trying to bring everybody up, or trying to pull down the people at the top? If they're trying to pull down everybody to the middle, then it will not help the poor. It will actually hurt the poor. It will decrease inequality, right? But it will not help the poor, because what you need to do is that you need to lift everybody up, and you need to be okay with the fact that some people will rise up much faster than others and will become much richer than others. But it's okay as long as everybody is rising up, and the median experience, the median basically person's income, the median person's consumption is rising and rising steadily, right? Because now in America, if a lower income person is also flying a plane, Elon Musk is perhaps flying a jet. I mean, if he goes to Mars or Moon, or that's a different story. But basically, you can be the richest person. You are also flying a plane only. It's that there are no other people.
Jeff Bezos is already going to the space.
Correct. So, but yeah, that and all aside, maybe that would also become democratized. Maybe everybody would be able to go to space
There are already
in 50 years and in 100 years, right? Because when mobile phones came, people wondered that why should this be prioritized? It's only for the rich. But the point is that if you think like that, then it will never reach the poor. And no matter how much you try to subsidize, no matter how much government tries, it would never be able to take it to the poor. Even in India, and I'm not sure in Bangladesh, the government tried a lot of schemes. MIT Media Lab tried to create some tablets that would be cheaper and that everybody can have, some 5,000 rupee, 10,000 rupee, everything they did, right? But what took any of this technology to the masses? It was private companies only seeking profits. It was private companies like like Micromax, like Xiaomi and all, that took mobile phones to masses, Samsung, and it was Jio that took data, free data, almost free data to everybody.
Even though it was a part of Reliance.
Yeah.
Also, like on that example, like Tata Nano also tried to give everyone like 1 lakh taka card, but that failed miserably because their marketing was like it was for poor families and all. So I think marketing also plays a
Absolutely
role
does.
in this.
Absolutely does. Because car was perhaps not,
It was
if car is a
as a
status
brand.
symbol, then that marketing would not really work out, right? That with Geo, the difference is that the same Geo connection that very rich people also have, the same Geo connection you are also having, right? Maybe you have.
Different plans and they have
Yeah,
different classes.
but other than that, there isn't
That
really
is
much
different.
of it. And it happens in time. It happens in due time because there is no product that if you launched, and it's expensive, it's not in the interest of the company to keep it expensive because they want to get volumes, and the only way to get volumes is to make it accessible so that a lot more people have it. So if they're able to bring their costs down, they will make it accessible for sure, right?
Because they have incentive on it.
Yes, 100%.
So we are almost end of the podcast. So from my side, I want to ask you last question. So you have been to many countries till now. In your opinion, what are the aspects or what are the things in South Asia, if people adopt or people are more accepting to it, that will bring the whole economy or the life culture a little bit better, at least to your point. I am not saying you have to go much philosophical perspective.
Okay, so there are two things that come to mind immediately. One is definitely rule of law, respect for rule of law, and that is something that we've touched upon. The other thing is urbanization. If people become very comfortable with the fact that yes, people are moving to cities and they will keep moving, do not see that as a bad thing. Don't think that it's getting overcrowded. Don't think that there are never too many people. That's just not a thing. Tokyo and even New York have very high population density, right? And so does Dhaka. But what's the difference? The difference is that they also have tall buildings, right, and wider roads. And you can have wider roads only when you have taller buildings, right? So basically, reimagining a city, and it's okay if some people basically are displaced, but it should be a win-win situation. That if they're leaving their homes, they should be getting a lot in return as well. Maybe they should be getting a newer house which is bigger, and you can afford to do that if you're building a very tall building, right? You can also afford to have a lot more plants, a lot more trees, a lot more greenery. People talk about concrete jungle that basically looks like a concrete jungle when there is a lot of, but actually it's that very concrete jungle that allows vegetation also, that allows if you have very small houses, you will obviously run out of space in a city like Dhaka. But at the same time, you need that population density for innovation to happen, for entrepreneurship to happen. There is a reason that Pathao was not founded in Khulna, right? And it was founded in Dhaka. So if it was Dhaka was still a small town, you would not have that much, activity, energy, vitality. So basically, maybe Bangladesh needs more cities, and so does India. And the existing cities also, it's okay if there are more people coming in. So I think if people were more welcoming to basically new people, as well as being okay with a lot of people coming in, but also working towards things like breaking down the FSI limits, which are the floor space index limits, which limits how tall you can build in a city, right?
That's
And
the
it
same
does
thing.
not make sense to not build tall in a city like Dhaka. Where are people going to live if you don't let people build tall? Then and that's the only thing that can widen roads. So people, that's the way to get rid of traffic, is to have like wider roads, to have public transit. But you can have public transit only if there are enough people, right? Because building metro systems costs a lot of money. So in a small town, if you build a metro out, it will cost you a lot and it will never recover the money. It will be a lot of government money that would go waste. And the reason is that there are not enough people within a specific vicinity. So that to have like a higher ridership, it's very important that even something like a public transit or like roads and everything, it really becomes important that you have taller buildings and a concentration of people. So be okay with having a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, that will redirect to my last question, and also my last key takeaway. Yes, every city has its own specs. Like Dhaka helped Pathau to emerge, and in cities, those are not like Dhaka, almost rural or sub-rural cities. This kind of cities actually help to emerge agricultural-based entrepreneurship.
Yes.
So, but to some extent, isn't it good to have decentralization of entrepreneurship in a country? Like people are more city-centric; they're moving towards city, and ultimately they fall into the trap of 9 to 5 job life, and they don't feel the urge to be innovative enough, or they lose the entrepreneurial mindset. So, what will be your message to the youth so that they could think about decentralization of their entrepreneurial mindset, and how it could also be beneficial for people of rural community, because we also
Sure.
need to think about them.
So I think my message is would be very simple and clear. I think people should not think about decentralization and centralization, right? People should think only about one thing. What are your skill sets? Where can you add the most value? Simple. If you can build an agricultural startup, and if you can do it at a small scale, maybe it's good that you are, in a rural community, and you're helping build. You're basically perhaps producing cash crops. You're helping farmers there produce cash crops and selling it, exporting it maybe, or sending it to Dhaka, something like that. Great. If you wanna if you even wanna build a very big agricultural company, right? Eventually, because it really requires a lot of network effects, you would have to move to a city. You'd have to move to a big city, but even then, you'd be empowering a lot of agriculture and a lot of people in rural. You can revitalize rural economies even from cities, right? So it's not really either or. It depends on where your skills fit in the best. And if your skills fit in the best, so for example, if let's say that you are a 10x software engineer, you are really good, and you're in a village in Bangladesh, it's actually just very difficult, right? By not migrating, what you're doing is you're not getting the best for yourself and also for your community, because you're not doing them service, by the way, right? If your ability was to mobilize them and to sell their produce, then you should be in that community, correct? But if it's something else, so people talk a lot about that, that people should move back and give back, but the point is that their skill sets maybe are not, cannot be fully utilized if they did. So in that case, I don't think that I would say basically just look at your skill set, go wherever is the best, and there is no such thing as brain drain also. So go to the US if you can, even now, right? If basically that's where you can utilize your skill set to the fullest, and don't think of it as brain drain, because actually those people when they are in those positions and they still care about Bangladesh, and that's, by the way, that's also how the story of India's IT story is basically a result of this so-called brain drain, because these people moved, but then once they were in those positions, once they had money, and some of them moved back. Those who did not move back at least invested back. If they were in their villages, they would not even have the money to invest. They would not be in that position, right? So I think the answer, honestly, is, again, depends on the individual, but the advice to the particular individual would be that to look at their own skill sets.
That's an interesting takeaway. So, yes, we are officially at the end of our podcast. I'm just humbly very grateful to you, Akash, because we had a plan to record this podcast online, but unfortunately we met in person again.
I'm glad
after,
that we did it in
after
person.
3
It's much
years.
better. Yes.
After 3 years
Yes.
after Nepal. So it's like a
Almost four.
refreshing,
Almost
yeah,
four.
almost 4.
Yeah.
It's a refreshing memory of reminiscing memories. So thank you for being
No, I'm glad.
here.
I'm glad that we did it, and I'm glad that we did it in person. Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
And thanks a lot for agreeing to do this actually, as we are still on the
And
newbie
also
phase.
to our audiences, please subscribe and
Like, share, subscribe.
keep sharing this podcast. And also don't forget that Akash's book is coming next year, co-authored by him. So keep an eye toward that in his social media handles.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Also, it's not we are not forcing anyone to like, share, and subscribe. If you are wanting, if you like this,
Only if you
then-
like the content.